What do you do in your everyday job, and why did you become a special education teacher?
In my job every day, I teach just as many classes as every other teacher, but my classes are focused on helping kids with their IEP goals. So I work on teaching kids reading. I work on teaching English when I co teach with another teacher for eighth grade. And I teach study skills in Avid. So I teach kids how to be better at school, how to be more successful by being organized, by keeping track of all of their stuff, getting help with their work, all of those things, and how to advocate for themselves, to understand their disability and stand up for what they need.
So do they also have other classes with mainstream kids, or is it just your
Absolutely,
class?
yes. So the students that I work with normally spend between 1 period and 3 periods in special education, but the rest of their classes are just like everybody else's.
Okay. What impact do you and other special ed teachers have on students?
I hope that we are able to individualize things for kids so that students with special needs are able to get everything that they're supposed to get for their regular grade level. So for me, it's for eighth grade, that they would be able to learn everything they're supposed to learn in eighth grade, but that I can help them by adapting it or changing it if you need to. So that could be just changing work, where a normal kid would have to work on maybe a 5-page paper that they're writing for their English class. And if they're a student who has an IEP, then I can help them to maybe write 3 pages and to give them extra ideas for how to get started with each part of it instead of doing it all on their own.
Okay. Um, which part of the IDEA Act do you specifically follow every single day?
Well, I don't have the act memorized, so I can't speak to that. But I know that that is what worked to make sure that all students have equal rights with their disability. And so, in the fact that every student who has an IEP has a paper that's called, it's an individual education plan. And it's written just for them to try to make sure that you're meeting their needs in school.
Yeah.
So I work every day to follow those IEPs to give the kids what they need. So I help them with their reading or their writing or their organization or their math or even their behavior. And then I work with their teachers to make sure that the teachers understand what the kids need and that they're getting it in all of their classes, not just mine.
Okay. Do you think that it's easier to teach special educated kids versus mainstream kids, or have you never actually worked with the mainstream kids before?
I worked with mainstream. I have a degree so that I can teach elementary regular students, and I did that for a little bit. And so I've done both. And every day I teach eighth grade English. So I work with kids and Avid. So I work with kids that are not, that don't have an IEP, that don't have a disability
Okay.
every day too. So I work with all kids. And I think that one is not easier than the other. I think with students who are specially educated, you have to know their strengths and weaknesses, and you have to work to change things for them so that they can get what they really need.
Yeah, and also I think that this also applies to mainstream kids too, because not all can learn the same way.
Exactly. And I think that that's true, that when I'm in my co-taught classes, when there's 2 of us teaching in the class, I know Mr. Chris does it in 6th grade, and I do it in 8th grade, that I help just as many kids without special needs. And they sometimes need more help than some of my students. So everybody benefits from extra help or looking at how they learn and working to help them in the best way they need.
That's true. What important things do you want everyone to know about the IDEA Act or people with disabilities?
That we all have differences and that we really have to work to understand those differences and not see them as something that will hold you back, but just something that you need to do in a different way. So everything doesn't even need to be equal for everyone, but it needs to be just. You know, there's this picture that I've seen that has it has 2 kids trying to look over a fence, and one of them is it's trying to do it, and it shows that he's equal, and that means that he's getting the exact same thing that the kid next to him who's super tall is getting. So he's on the same size block. Well, that doesn't help him because he still can't see. Because he's shorter, he needs something that's taller so that he'll be able to see over the fence. So that's the justice piece, is that you give the kid what they need, not just the same thing for everybody, you know? So you have to give people what they actually need. And I think that's important, to understand what they need and then work to give it to them.
Okay. How have you collaborated with general education teachers to benefit your students?
Well, like I said, I co-teach every day. So I teach 2 English classes in 8th grade with the English teacher. And we're both equal teachers in there. I do the grading, I do the planning, I do all the work that she does. And we work together to help all students. So that's been good because I'm out working with the kids and helping her to understand things in a different way. With all teachers, I try to make sure that they know about my students and what their needs are, like what they're good at and what they have trouble with. And then I make sure that they know what those kids need. So I'll go and talk to the teachers when History Day is coming up or when something is happening and say, well, this student is going to have a lot of trouble if they do a writing thing, so I'm going to have to help them with this part. Or this kid is going to have trouble remembering all the due dates, so can I have a copy of all the papers and be able to help them with it and send that home so they know, and, you know, just all the things that you can do to try to help across the board. So it's making sure everybody knows about it and then making sure that every kid has access to what they need.
Okay. What methods do you use to encourage students to explore learning opportunities?
I think that I try to find things that kids are interested in.
Yeah.
So that they have some connection to. Because if you can't make a connection to something that's already happened in your life or something that you want to have happen in the future, then it's hard to be involved in your learning, you know, the right way.
And how have you ensured that each student receives the right type of support?
I think it's constantly talking with the teachers, with the families, and with the kids to make sure that they all get what they need.
Okay. Well, yep. Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.